All right. Good morning, people. Bob back once again. Ready to break down some Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and get down to it. So yesterday, as we're recording, we're getting some wild price action. Actually turned into a pretty nice day. Once it settled in here, it took right up off of it. And we talked about that yesterday morning. I mean, this level, if it held up, was an important level. Now the interesting thing is here, it came up, put in a retest of the 21 simple on the daily chart here, and failed to exceed it. So then we've got this candle here today. As long as it, and I'd like to think that it won't even come down to here, but as long as it comes down here, pops up again, we're looking at a possible double bottom on the daily. I guess this technically could have been two. I mean, you had a move that came right up off of that same level. Now we're here. Now we'll zoom in on the action a little bit and kind of see a few things, but keep in mind this trend line here, this solid white trend line, and then we've got our rising broadening wedge down here in the RSI, and then here's our breakout trend line, right? So we've got this. We got these guys, and then we had our initial breakout here, right? That lines up with this. Now, the question is, did we break back above it, and is this going to be a solid retest here today to actually continue an upside push? Well, the question will end up being, does it hold this level now, and before the day is out, does it make a move up towards here? Now, I'm looking at this, and I see a few things that could happen. So today, with today being, it's July 14th, but that being stated, today being Thursday, we understand, and we've talked about it before, that the market does have a tendency, at least historically speaking, for positive price action between Thursday and Saturday, Thursday and Sunday, sometimes, just depends. So now the question becomes, are we prepared to actually resume an uptrend? Technically we haven't lost this one. This is potentially a bearish fake out. Now the question is, will this be a bullish fake out? And again, it's all going to be figured out here real soon. Now it's holding up 19.8. I've got a support at about 19.670. On one of my charts, and I think that's the number we're looking for. So I would look for it to start making a push up here today again, whether or not it actually eclipses this level or not. And my only concern about running into the weekend is that right now we've got this that looks like it could be a shoulder, head, and a possible shoulder. So if Bitcoin fails today to break this 20,800 range, then I would be far more inclined to believe that thing is just a small head and shoulder, at which point, again, the same thing we've been talking about, that thing comes down here. Now, if it ends up being, if it finds support here and then makes another push up, well, then we could expect that we're probably coming back to the top of this channel at some point over the weekend here. And then what would be really interesting is if we actually got something that maybe caught everybody off guard a little bit, and that as we go into the weekend, we actually break up out of this pattern. At that point, we're looking at something close to 27-ish thousand, 28 even. Now, and I guess really I hadn't even looked at it that closely and kind of really gave a great deal of thought to this structure here, but not entirely different than this one. I mean, this on shorter term time frames, I mean, you could look at this and say that this has the potential to be a bit of a reversal pattern. You're holding a certain low basically, and in fact setting slightly higher lows each time you're coming back here. So this does have the potential, and then what I would think would happen if this ends up being a reversal here, you're going to be very surprised when you watch this thing fire up all the way and reclaim this level here. Do I honestly think that's going to happen? At least not over the weekend. I mean, if let's say Bitcoin does go from just under 19.8 right now, and it pops up all the way to 28.8. I mean, that would be a fairly insane weekend. I mean, that would be like bull market style type move. Outside of that, I mean, we're still within this. So on the MACD, I've got these trend lines here based on a weekly chart, but you can see that the daily is still well within inside of here as well. And really, it's interesting if you added trend lines on here, you'll see. I mean, you've got an uptrend that started here and went to here. Well, you can see on the price action, there it is. Once it lost that uptrend, down we go, big pullback. We got another uptrend that took place here. There you go, uptrend, down, another uptrend. So now the question becomes, do we still need to fill out this pattern a bit here? I mean, is that what's going to happen? And if so, if we still need to fill out this pattern some more, then the question becomes, when this thing does break to the downside again, what are we really talking about here, right? What are we going to come down into here, and then that is in fact going to bring us down all the way to here? I mean, I don't think it would be unreasonable to believe that. But if this thing were to just continue this upwards movement, and to be frank, I'm not sure that that's the case, just because you've got this. We talk about bearish divergence, and I mean, here's a high on the MACD. And it corresponds with this high up here. Here's a high on the MACD again, corresponds with this high up here. I think we could all agree that this high is much lower than this one. Thus, this is essentially a bearish divergence, which it's already starting to show some signs that, you can see on the histogram that it is in fact pulling back a little bit. We got some serious volume that came in over the last handful of days. Now, I always try to remind everybody, that when it comes to volume, there has to be a buyer and a seller, right? That both have to be involved in the transaction. And as you start getting further down the chart, it makes more sense to start believing that it is in fact buying pressure. I mean, it originates from selling pressure, obviously, in a lot of cases, but that buying pressure is starting to build around this level. So, I mean, I think the whole market sees at least an opportunity for a turnaround here, whether it starts from 17.8 or whether it does go down one more level to say 14.4 or something along those lines, 15 grand. But I mean, there's some decent indication. Now, granted, again, a lot of the bigger volume days are sell volume days, but again, you've at least got a chance when you start seeing volume come in like that. So, yeah, I mean, this, and we've talked about this before too. This is an inherently bearish pattern, so it should break to the downside at some point. But the question becomes, where does it break down from? If Bitcoin does find a way to at least push up to the upside of this again, and maybe not break out, but if it pushes up to the upside again, you're looking at something maybe in the neighborhood of 24,000, right? So you come up here, you try to break through this level, you don't, and then you come down through. Now all of a sudden, at least you're breaking down out of the pattern at a much higher level, and that brings us back to pretty much this level. So really, everything's going to be predicated based upon what happens here today, truly. I mean, that's the long and short of it, is that what happens today is going to be highly telling as to where we actually go from here. Again, we still got a chance that this thing turns into some sort of reversal pattern. Again, I could show you multiple times where you get this, and then all of a sudden you blast up to this side over here, fill this area out, and then you almost put in a head and shoulder. The only thing is that in order for the head and shoulder to really play out right, typically speaking, this side would need to actually come up slightly higher. And again, then we're starting to talk something in the 30,000s, and I think that there's maybe some lack of reality if I start telling you that I truly believe we're gonna be heading back to the 30,000 range in the immediate future. So, yeah, I mean, you know, at least as of right now, that's what I would tell you. Now let's go ahead and actually, while we're here, let's make an adjustment on this. I didn't even really notice, but let's make an adjustment on this now that we do have a lower low that's on the chart. Let's go ahead and use this guy right here. And you can see that that lines up fairly well with some of the other lines I already have on the chart as support and resistance, so this is good. Yeah, really, I mean, this is the number right here. If we're going to hit an upside target at some point over the weekend, my thought would be that this 24,000 level is the one, all right? Now, obviously, we've struggled to crack and hold 22, but again, if we get a really solid push this weekend, that's going to be our number, right around 24,000, $55. If things went real crazy and then it pops up here and then into, you know, next week, you know, probably, I mean, it would be somewhere it probably comes up here, you know, just briefly test this, and then you can see here it didn't put in a whole lot of work over here, so this would be something I would see it take this level, pop. We'll see, right? It's never a given, but I think that it was important to kind of go through that. Let me do one thing here too. Let's get back on the weekly chart, because I was giving some thought to some aspects here, just kind of where we ended up at yesterday as far as the high. You know, on a positive note, you know, yesterday when we're doing this video, we're way down here buried in it. Just looks like, you know, it's just bouncing around. Like I said, luckily the bulls found a way to hold this level. Now the question becomes, do we only come back up here? Do we even make it past 21.1? Or do we go ahead? Bitcoin comes on up here, taps this 24,000, comes back down, puts in a solid bullish retest of 22.5, and then we're off to the races. And that could take a couple of weeks to play out, frankly. I mean, you know, assuming this week ends up being something crazy, that'll come up here, and then maybe the next week it would, you know, so this is something that, if it's going to happen, I would say it doesn't happen practically, you know, overnight for sure, or over the course of a weekend even, but I could see it coming up here, retesting this level once it claims it, or even having to come back down and retest here, and then pop. We shall see. I mean, you know, right now, and we'll zoom in on the shorter term time frame so we can kind of take a look at this. But you know, so this is the chart that we would typically use for our 4 hour. We've kind of gone into this a little before. Now, this right here, you know, I think maybe I'd mentioned it previously. I'm sure that I did, because I had probably measured the move out of here. But we had this nice descending broadening wedge. I talked about the concept of the cup and handle, and that for the handle to actually work out effectively, it had to hold this level. It did. So right now, this handle, you know, based on a cup and handle pattern, is doing what it could or should. Now, I guess the question becomes, this lower trend line, how accurate is it, right? Because now it looks like we broke back above it. Now we're back below it. This trend line here, accuracy of it, looks like we're back below that after we broke back above it. So again, you know, if you're looking here on the shorter term time frames, you got to ask yourself, do we get a bullish fake out through all that price action yesterday? Is that what we're looking at? Or could I actually say, all right, we've got another ascending broadening wedge on the 4 hour that is working, you know, that is trying to play itself out here, and all of a sudden here is our actual pattern on the 4 hour. And then assuming that it holds this trend line here, this one I just added, then it does open up these opportunities again up here. That's on the 4 hour. So, I mean, we got, you know, some crazy price action. My goodness. All right, so that's the 4 hour. And this could just as easily break out of here at this point. I mean, I don't think it's a given one way or the other, certainly. Now let's take a look at the hourly, because the same thing applies here. You know, I noticed again, we got our ascending broadening wedge here on the RSI. This is 1, 2, 3. This will be the fourth attempt, at least based on the RSI, to claim support here. Just don't know that happens. I mean, you're looking here. We lost the 21 on the hourly chart. That's not a good sign. So now, unless it holds this 50 right here, it probably does need to come down further. And as we've been talking about, there could be some downside targets down much further. Now, this chart makes it a lot easier to see what I'm talking about with the possible head here, shoulder. But this would dictate that we do actually still make one more push up to here in order to fill out the shoulder over on this side. Because more often than not, you are going to get price action that matches when you're starting to get that. Now, what we don't want is to lose this level and fall below that, because if we lose that level, then that does make this head and shoulder look a lot more realistic. But I do think, again, that it would be fairly likely for me to believe that this thing came up here, which essentially matches that high. We're going to find some support here, bounce up, and come into this 20,600-ish range. Now, keep this number in mind, because if we flip back over to the daily chart, 20,500 or so is where the 21 simple moving average is on the daily chart, right? And we can go back and we can verify that. That's the weekly at the moment, but we can go back and verify the daily. 21 simple is actually about 20,000. It's under 20,500 at this point. So really, if we get that move today, this suddenly becomes incredibly logical to believe that we actually do make some positive progress up the chart this weekend. I'm not liking that I'm seeing us losing this 19.7-ish range. It's kind of working its way there. If we lose that, let's go ahead and we'll zoom in on one of our other charts here. Let's see. So yeah, here we go. Let's go back over to this one briefly. So we got this 19,642 number, still holding that for the moment. But if we lose that, all of a sudden you're looking at potentially coming back into this trend line here. That then opens you up. If you come back inside this trend line, you can pretty well guarantee it's going to lose every support through here, and then this would be the likely landing spot. So wow, that was a quick turnaround. So yeah, I mean, we basically need this level to hold, and it looks like it may actually want to now. Yeah, that was a lot of price action there in a very short time. Let's see what's going on the real. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, I mean, you can see here, this is kind of that wicked stuff like we were getting yesterday, literally wicked, wicked. But yeah, I think this actually does have some feasibility to go ahead and just pop on up here. And again, kind of like we were talking about with that reversal pattern, this could end up being a shoulder. This could be a head. So maybe we get an inverse head and shoulder, pop up here, find some support throughout this region, just under 20,000. Then all of a sudden we're popping up again. So we've got a few ways that this thing can go, just a matter of which one it's going to do. And again, we've got some ideas as to what we're going to look for should this all play out in one way or the other. Obviously it's going to, but we've got kind of an idea which way we'll go one way or the other. So let's see what happens. Let's hope that in fact we're going to get another positive weekend out of Bitcoin. It's never a given, but I always look for positive price action. Typically, though, again, I think it really is Thursday through Saturday. Normally by Saturday at around noon, I feel as though it hits a peak, and then it spends the rest of the weekend just kind of showing you some things like it could go ahead and continue upwards, and then it just doesn't. I've seen that plenty of times, and then by the time Sunday night rolls around, maybe even midday Sunday, then as opposed to holding these higher levels, it really starts to accelerate the downward trend. I mean, you could look here. July 7th was let's see, let's go back. July 7th was last Thursday. All right, so we had that. And then as you go into the weekend, here's July 8th, so that'd be Friday. July 9th, I mean, and then here, July 9th at approximately and 1:45 in the afternoon, 2 in the afternoon, it peaked. And then it rolled from there. And then the sun, and again, here you go, as you make your way into Sunday, that's when it really started to accelerate the downtrend right here, you can see. So, that's just one of those things. Like I said, I kind of look for it that way. I mean, ideally, we're not going to peak on Thursday this time, and we'll just roll through the weekend with some positive price action. But we shall see. But again, we appreciate you as always. Really, again, this is the line in the sand for now for me. Hopefully, it pops up out of here. If it does, again, I'm going to be looking to see it come up above this level this time, hold it, and then let's make an upside push. Otherwise, basically, we break back into this pattern here, this trend line, and then I'm going to be looking for us to come all the way down into the 18 something again. But with any luck, again, this holds up here, maybe approximately here. I wouldn't be opposed to coming down here and putting in a test and then popping up out of there. So we shall see. Appreciate you as always. Looking forward to catching up again. Enjoy your day.